Well, with this video, I wanted to just keep going with the Joe Rogan breakdowns of coincidentally the same time I posted the last video. I think this one was live, so there are so many different videos, clips that are basically they're gonna say the same thing. I've done a breakdown of an interview with Joe Rogan and Neil deGrasse Tyson before. This is going to be the same sort of thing, but it's always going to be like an updated version. He talks about flat Earth, talks about Christopher Columbus, and all kinds of things. Um, I'll get into that. I don't really want to give too much like or not information, but breakdowns in and around like what's going on because a lot of people already know. They can already sense like the style of communication or the style of the way Joe Rogan interacts with his guests and specifically certain people. Um, Joe Rogan always plays the alpha unless it's somebody who represents the establishment. Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of, if not the heaviest establishment representatives that Joe Rogan will consistently just tuck tail and listen to the whole time. He won't interrupt. He won't disagree. He'll be totally amenable and agreeable with everything that Neil says. And he's basically like the establishment cuck. He is used to act as the platform for people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku, or all these people who represent the establishment, and act as like the interpreter. He's the, like I said, he's the regular Joe, the average Joe consciousness. So he's just like he's like a non-political politician. He's a politician. I have a theory or a prediction after seeing some of these videos that I just wanted to share real quick. I really do think that they're going to use Joe Rogan to break away from a lot of things because he's believable. He basically is like a politician. People are going to believe him. And from my observation, he looks like it doesn't look like he's going to be able to sit around and just suck Neil deGrasse Tyson's dick forever. I don't think every video that I see them in the same video or interview, it looks like Joe is just losing more and more patience, or he just doesn't want to do the job because he's a punk. He's being punked right now by the establishment. He's like a space cuck. That's what he is. He has to hold that line. And now in this video, you'll hear he's like, I don't know about the moon landing. I heard another one interview. He's like, I used to disagree, and now and then I was all about it, and now I just am sure I don't know. So anyway, he represents the voice of authority, and Neil deGrasse Tyson represents the degree of authority. So in order to speak on the authority and create the belief systems of an entire consciousness, you have to first have to have a degree. So these are the people who represent these degrees of consciousness are people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. So you just need the authority, which is the egotistical sort of just like push, like this is the way it is, and you're crazy if you think otherwise. That's what people like Joe Rogan, Stephen Colbert, TYT, and even Alex Jones represent. So this is how science works with politics, science works with the mainstream media, and even movies do the same thing. They represent both a degree and the authority to tell you what your reality is. So this is where they make these movies about space. They just take the degree, the information about civilization or about the mind controls that they want you to believe in, and then they just put them on the television. People already know all this stuff, but I'm just setting this up to listen to keep in mind when you're listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has to sell everything. He's like a he's like an old grandpa talking, reading fairy tales to his little kids, and anything that he says, you just have to go with it. There's no question about it. You just have to listen and shut your mouth and just go with it. And Joe plays that role perfectly because so this interaction basically represents the interaction between science and the mass population. This is an act. This is a theater. Joe represents the shut your fucking mouth and listen to me. I'm the authority on everything that you love and cherish in your life today. I am the representative of the evolved consciousness of humanity, and there's nothing else to be said. And Joe Rogan tucks his tail between his legs and sits there like a little bitch and listens to everything that Neil deGrasse Tyson says and just pretty much just cups his balls the entire interview. And Neil even recognizes, and I think it's something iffy about it. Like he's separating himself in a little bit from Alex Jones. It makes sense that he's gonna. I mean, he can't hold up this show for so long. He plays like the real guy. He's like the real character. You can't play a real character if you're talking about fake shit for so long. It can only last for so long. The only reason why it's lasting for so long is because he constantly reinforces those illusions with people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and all these other people that he has on his show. So, let's listen to this. It's just, I'm going to skip through like a few different clips. I want to speed it up because this should be taking way too long. At least. Yeah, and just pay attention to the way Joe talks, or lack thereof, to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He just sits there, listen to the tone, the authority, the style, because Neil deGrasse Tyson ain't talking to Joe Rogan. He's talking to people who's listening. He's talking to the masses of people. So keep that in mind. I'm going to get to the video. I don't know if it's the last video in line here, but there's a video where Neil deGrasse Tyson says Christopher Columbus discovering America was the biggest human achievement ever, pretty much. And Joe Rogan seems hesitant at first, and then he goes into agreeing with him because he's just going to be agreeable with everything because that's what he was paid to do, and that's what he represents. That not thinking for yourself, average, scared as shit about the government or from the government, scared of the government because they represent your idea of an evolved consciousness. See, it's kind of like, that's a good way to say it. Like it's kind of like children going against their mother and father, but they're not their mother and father. They were kidnapped. So you've been psychologically, spiritually, and physically kidnapped with all of these ways that we interact with each other. That's totally self-destructive and outwardly destructive on every level, from every amount of your resources. Everything is provided to you basically by your kidnappers. And Joe Rogan represents that Stockholm Syndrome mentality of loving your slave master because you've been around them for so long. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like most people who listen to this video and seen these videos before, he plays that cuckold role of just, like anything Neil says, anything science says, anything Hollywood says, anything that politics say that is, the American way, Joe's going to be there, watching the whole thing and playing that role. He plays best. So let's just hear what he says. And because I forgot there's so many videos, I couldn't finish all of them. And I really don't want to go through all of them. But it's stressful enough having one of these assholes talk, let alone both of them. So let's just go through it and try to get through it as much as possible.
So 25 and under, I think, are the millennials.
Yeah, but 30, when they were 10, the internet was around.
I know, but they need a different marketing term, so you can market to them differently.
Yeah.
So to me, I would put them in the same bin, just as you were thinking there. But they have a different relationship to science and technology.
Of course.
They don't fear the science or the technology. They embrace it because it has shaped the civilization that has enabled their social life.
It has, but through this, like one of the things that I tweeted, I think it was from Scientific American yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, that it's a little bit misleading. But one of the things they said is only 64% of millennials have a strong belief. These coasters are terrible. They look great, but then things stick to the bottom.
The hell is it made of?
I don't know, metal.
Yeah, okay. A metal coaster?
Yeah. See?
What the hell is that?
It sticks. Yeah, that's the issue. It sticks when it gets moisture.
You know about this where you flip this over and you tip it over? And then
What happens?
You ever done that? You never did that?
What?
Yeah, it'll stay. Yeah.
He has to play the science guy. Like, oh yeah, look at this guy. He's like an old dad or an old uncle talking to his kids, and you get that sort of feeling when, like, the system wants you to have that feeling when you listen to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, because they are really trying to play like your providers. They're your providers of civilization. They're your providers of your resources. They're your providers of your psychology, your technology, your ability to communicate with your family. Everything is given to you by this system. So he plays that daddy role for people who have daddy issues and mommy issues. Like, I mean, everything is broken. So the only thing that is solid in society is your ability to believe in stuff like heliocentrism and the way technology is added up to today. These are the things that we're proud of, and that was going to be like my next video. It's kind of like I can take it into these perspectives into this video, but really think about like what the government, what society, what this modern so-called civilization holds dear. Like it loves, it always repeats evolution. It repeats the space. It going to the moon, World War I, World War II, all these war movies. Look at Hollywood, all the repetitive themes. Look at the themes. Everything that is repeated. This is another thing, and I'm glad I remembered this now, because this is a theme, and being a veteran, this is most fucked up thing that I see, and you're going to see it more often, especially now with the NFL getting ready to kick into gear. I just seen I think it was on a baseball game, and people who've seen this anyway, they cart these. This is like the most disrespectful thing they can do. Obviously, we already know that the wars are all bullshit. They're all made of lies so people can go and take land and just conquer, just expand the colonial empire. That's still happening today. And they'll do that by lying to the people, and especially the soldiers who are going out there and dying and getting their limbs blown off. The fucked up thing after that is, if it can't get any worse, once they get their limbs blown off, once they get all this brain trauma and PTSD, what happens is they come home and they have this sense of pride from being hurt because they serve their country. And what happens is that either the NFL or it's usually the NFL or the baseball, Major League Baseball. It's usually Major League Baseball because it's all about America with hot dogs, and baseball is the American pastime. So what they do is they get about 10 or so wounded veterans, have them dress up in their uniform, and they cart them out to the middle of the field, and they have like airplanes fly over. What they're doing is they're using the people that, in many cases, the people around them are dead because of these lies, and they're barely alive. They're using them as recruitment ads, not only for the military, but for the enslavement mindset of the United States. This is what they're doing. This is how ridiculous and inhumane this mindset is. It has, It's the most disgusting thing to see. Is like some veteran's got like no legs and no arms, but he's getting wheeled out to a fucking baseball game to sit out there, and somebody else is throwing out the first baseball. And it's just getting more and more kids to go out there. People like Joe Rogan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they take pride in this shit. It's all one storyline. It's one mechanism to keep you loving the system. When Joe Rogan and Neil deGrasse Tyson get together, that's no different than like a 4th of July celebration when they cart those wounded veterans out there. They want you to believe in the military. They want you to believe in the idea that everything is cool and everything is just, there's nothing to worry about. And then you just carry on with the system. This is the Neil deGrasse Tyson, Joe Rogan interaction is like the intellectual version of getting you to vest your life, your energy, and your belief systems and your love and respect into the system. Because they humanize it.
Oh, because of the pressure?
Yeah, the air pressure. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But
don't do it. I don't trust your science.
Okay.
Your objective truth.
64% of what?
Of millennials are not, or only 64% are convinced that the world is a ball. The world is a circle. That the world is a spheroid. Is that what it's called? Oblique.
I mean, I'd like to see how that question was asked.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if they know that we are oblate, and the thing is asking, is Earth a ball? They'll say, no, we're an oblate ball. We're slightly wider below the equator than at the equator, so we're a pear-shaped oblate spheroid.
But it's not a pear that you would find normally. If you found that pear, you'd be like, this fucking pear that's shaped like a ball.
So these differences in measurements are so small that if you found it on the ground, you would say this is a perfect sphere.
Right.
Let me tell you how good a sphere it is.
Right.
Right. You ever see the schoolroom globes, the geographic globes? And you rub your finger over Nepal, and you get the Himalayas. Yeah, and you get the Rockies. It's, that is a gross exaggeration of reality.
Yes.
Do you realize if you took Earth with all of its mountains, valleys, and hills, and shrunk it down to the size of a cue ball, it would be smoother than any cue ball ever machined?
Really?
Yes. Yes. Think about it.
What?
Oh, fuck. It's not even worth it, really. They just have to keep generating different ways to perceive what they're telling you. Here's another way to perceive this illusion. Here's another way to perceive this illusion. Hey, we're making it dumb. They're dumbing illusions down. That's what's happening. Dumb it all the way down so people get another elementary perspective on the original illusion. It's just getting exhausting after a while because they can just keep coming up with other distractions. And like I said, it really doesn't matter what the system is doing because it's based upon, like, the real change is based upon the people no longer accepting the authority for truth or the authority for intelligence or the authority for perceiving your reality from people like this. Neil deGrasse Tyson, how I see it after seeing these videos, he's obvious. Like, it seems even more and more, he's not going to last very long either. Like, he might have some more. He's going to be the one going down with the whole system. And Joe Rogan doesn't want to be a part of that. He's going to eventually separate himself from that. And I wouldn't doubt that he's going to be the one playing like the I have been betrayed sort of role. It doesn't add up. Like, when you have Eddie Bravo, you got the connection with Alex Jones, you got the connection to Neil deGrasse Tyson, you got them talking about Eric Dubay and Flat Earth, and they mention all this stuff, and then you think it's just gonna like go away. Of course not. They can't just keep telling the same thing. And eventually they're gonna have to get in the ring, in the octagon, and do that whole fight. But however it is, or whoever it is, point is, it's inevitable. The inevitable fall of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson is right around the corner. It's obvious, and for right now it's exhausting because the arrogance of these pieces of shit, both of them, Neil and his cuck Joe, it's just ridiculous.
Think about this. Joe.
Really?
Joe,
Everest?
Joe, chill. Listen to me.
Damn.
Joe,
Okay?
Joe.
Do you know the deepest part of Earth's crust?
No.
The Marianas Trench, off the coast of the Philippines, in the Pacific Ocean.
That's the deepest part.
Deepest part. It goes 6 miles down. Okay?
Oh, okay. So, okay. I was thinking of the depth of the crust itself.
No. Just access to the deepest part of Earth's crust, the lowest point on Earth's surface, the Marianas Trench, right off the coast of the Philippines. The highest point on Earth's surface, the tip of K1.
K2? Is it K1 or K2? Which one? Is it Japan?
I think it's K1. Well, why would you name the tallest peak K2?
That's a good point.
I'm just, I'm not a mountain climber, but I'm just thinking.
Where is K1?
K1, it's the Himalayan mountains.
Okay.
In Nepal. Okay? Isn't it in Nepal? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, let's say, how high up is that? It was 28,000 feet. So it's like 5 miles up. Okay?
Right.
The distance.
Do you see how he's talking to him? Now, okay. You see, he's locking that information not into people through locking it into Joe. And then Joe says, okay, okay. The same way Joe does that when he gets aggressive with people who get out of line with his thought process during his time when he's being the alpha.
Between the lowest point on Earth's surface and the highest point on Earth's surface.
And you see how, and like I said, pay attention to the way he's telling his story. How much all of his energy is going into convincing you. Like the stuff that Neil deGrasse Tyson, hard science, or what they call hard science, or science the way science is, like true science, doesn't need to convince people. Like it exists the way it exists. It is like that. That's it. It is what it is. You have your observations. You have your repeating your experiments. You have everything that's lined up. Yet, listen to the way he's speaking. And people will say, oh, well, he has to speak that way because the topic is flat earth and people are talking about how it's just absurd, so he's getting passionate. No. In every interview, he's like this. And the point is, once you start realizing how ridiculous any of the heliocentric information is, you'll realize that that's why he has to do this. He has to sell it. He has to sell you something, and he has to sell it with his emotion and his perceived passion. And Joe Rogan acts as like the lubrication. So he's the lube and the cuck all at the same time.
It's 11 miles.
That's here to the Comedy Store.
That is less than the length of Manhattan.
Whoa.
Yet we are 8,000 miles in diameter. And those 2 points are very far separated from one another.
Yet we are 8,000 miles in diameter. You see how he has to speak like that? What the fuck? You just talk, man. Just say what you're saying.
If you were a cosmic giant and you came up to Earth and you rubbed your finger over Earth's surface, it would feel as smooth as a cue ball to you.
Wow.
In fact, in this book, I have a whole chapter on being round, which is all about this. It's all about our perception of what is round and what is not.
I had asked you to debate one of them flat Earth guys.
No, I don't. I can't. No.
I know. We talked about it, and we were going to have him on Skype.
No, what we do is, and I think this is a diabolical plot, so that the next time we can ship people en masse into orbit, they all want to be the first in line because they know we're going to send.
Deflection. So you see how, oh no, because it would insult my intelligence to even entertain such an individual who thinks like that. Because, first of all, they know exactly why he can't debate anybody who's talking about that. But you can see the obvious deflection, and that's why I wanted to play this video. I could have skipped all the way up to this part, but yeah. Watch the deflection. Watch how Joe just goes along with it, and it's just it's arrogance. Arrogance wins the day on this show.
So if they can see the round Earth, they're going to be the first ones in space. Just so they can stop annoying
it's
the rest
so
of us.
cool.
I don't think you're correct there.
I think
So he's presented with real shit, like a real thing. Like, oh yeah, hey, weren't you supposed to talk to this flat Earth dude? And he's like, no, I just don't. Yeah, you know what? Hey, let's make fun of him together, Joe. Like, we're good buddies. Let's be bully buddies, and let's just bully all the flat earthers together. Yeah. Okay, this is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say, let's send all the flat earthers into orbit. We'll be the first ones to put them on a rocket. And then they can prove it themselves. Right, Joe? Yeah, Neil. Woo! We did it. We're cool.
I think you're correct.
You don't think it's a diabolical plot?
I do have people that have met that don't believe, because the problem with YouTube videos is, it's a problem with a lot of things, but one of the things about being unchecked while you're discussing things is you can say things, you can use big words, you can sound articulate and smooth, and you can do it in a very professional looking manner.
Or do it passionately.
Yes, passionately, convincingly, charismatically, and you're unchecked. But if you did that in front of an expert and you showed him that, along the way they go, stop, that's not true. Stop, that's not how it works.
Right.
Let me show you why this is incorrect. Let me show you how you could...
See, he's saying like that's all hypothetical, because if that was the case, then it shouldn't be a problem for Neil to be able to sit up there and do that and just shut people down. But he's just saying that to talk shit more about people like on YouTube, like, oh, these YouTube scientists or these YouTube people, they can look at, but as soon as they're in front of a professional, then boom, they're shut down. But he's just saying that. He literally brought that to the attention of Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Neil said no. He said no because he's a scared little piece of shit. And he's not scared. He's very aware of what's going to happen. But this is how they mind trip you.
Prove that this is incorrect.
And show you objective truths.
But this is not happening.
That render your argument invalid.
Right. So people who don't have any education, and then they watch one of these YouTube clips, they start actually believing that this stuff makes sense because it's unchecked.
And I would say it's not about whether they've had education. It's about whether the education they had teaches them skepticism of information and teaches them how to inquire. You realize it's just as intellectually lazy to believe everything you see as it is to deny everything you see.
Yes.
Why should someone know automatically that Earth isn't flat, yet I tell them in the next breath that the entire universe was once as small as a marble?
And they play that all the time, that YouTubers believe everything that they see, or YouTubers believe everything that they hear. It's just untrue. It's completely untrue. But they have to say that. They have to expand that out to some extreme sort of absurd thing, because they want you to believe everything that they say is true. That's the only... So it's like this weird reverse psychology and reverse mind control where it's obvious.
Right? Both of those sound equally preposterous, except one has evidence to back it and the other does not. And very strong scientific, theoretical, and experimental underpinnings.
Strong.
So when you are trained to inquire, you don't either believe everything outright or reject everything outright. You're trained to ask questions. You're trained to probe deeper than the layer of information that comes to you. That's what should be taught in school. And it's not. They give you a book and say, learn this.
This dude is the biggest piece of shit.
And you'll get tested on it. And then when you're... It's
a good pause. This dude is the biggest piece of shit out there. I have a feeling he's going to be... They're gonna like beat him down. Like he's gonna be like the Bill Cosby of science. It's not to defend Bill Cosby in any kind of way or anything like that. No, as far as attacking and bringing down people or an idea or a thing to maintain the... See, because what happens is once they bring down somebody like him, like it makes the establishment more powerful, because now they can have new, younger generations of scientists or whatever, or they can use it to make the system look really smart and really forward thinking. That's what throwing people like Neil deGrasse Tyson under the bus is going to do. When this happens, because his ego is just so disgusting and so huge. There's no way, like his essence as a soul, as a being, will never be able to be real. Like how I see it, he's in the 90th percentile of people just looking at him just like forever. He will live and die with that Neil deGrasse Tyson arrogance. That's the kind. So if that's the case, he's never going to change. He's going to hold that line forever. then what are they going to do with somebody like that? It's kind of obvious. It's kind of like Trump. Neil, as obvious as Trump is, knowing that the presidential selection is not, voting, they do stuff on purpose. Look how obvious Donald Trump is. He's obviously placed in there to have an effect, a particular effect on people. He represents this dunce piece of shit, just like nothing extra bad, and it's on purpose. Neil deGrasse Tyson represents that same sort of mentality or expression, only in science. My point is, like, what's going to happen next? And they already have these people lined up, simulation theory and New Agers and all these truthers, and all they got to do is take that side now. And then as soon as these people are out of the way, now what?
Unlearn this.
Well, isn't also there's a problem with being inexorably connected to your first belief. When you have an idea and it's in your head, it's very difficult for people to shake that idea, and they start arguing that idea becomes a part of their identity.
And they dig their heels in deeper when an opposing view is presented
because
to them.
they connect themselves.
See, they don't ever talk about the actual subject. If they do, it's just like a quick, like, of course boats go over the horizon. It's just silly to think otherwise. We got pictures of the Earth. Why should I even entertain a flat earther? So what they have to do is they have to attack the character of the individual who thinks differently than them. That's what they're doing right now. They're attacking the character of people who don't believe everything that comes out of the mouth of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. And that's their only defense mechanism.
These ideas.
Right.
It is who they are.
Right.
And it's not even really a real one.
I try not to base my character profile on something that is not yet verified as objective truth.
And that's a very good thing to do.
It's one of the reasons why I don't have tattoos on my body.
Uh-oh.
Holding Go on, stretching my face. Go on. One of the reasons is there's nothing I am so sure about that I want to put it indelibly on my skin. No, let me say it differently. There's nothing I value in my mind, body, and soul so much in this moment that I want to indelibly etch it on my skin. Because I want to leave room for me to have a possibly more enlightening thought later.
Oh, my goodness. I'm not an atheist. How Christopher Columbus was a dick. Christopher Columbus discovering America was a great... Let me do that before this.
So let me tell you that story about Christopher Columbus.
Please.
So
the dick story.
I already told you the dick story.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you just something else.
Okay.
Okay. I think him coming to America was the most significant thing to ever happen in our species.
Whoa.
Silence.
That's how the system wants you to think and feel. They want you to see something like Christopher Columbus genociding the Native Americans from a positive perspective. This is alchemy. Nothing less. This is why Joe Rogan had to pause there right now, because he's about to be on the same team as this dude. He's already on the same team. And to say some shit like that, you could have people talking about how that's just total bullshit forever. Joe Rogan doesn't know what to say. He knows Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to bring it back around in some, like, we should be proud American, Anyway, I don't need to go into it too much. It's just sickening to go to even hear that. I wasn't surprised when he said that, but the accuracy of how that relates to what I've been saying for however long I've been making videos, evolution and them totally negating anything that existed in the pre-Columbian era. It all banks around this whole the Columbus thing. This is what it's all starting there. They have to look forward. They have to look up to this shit and then make you love it. I can't believe he said this. This is just ridiculous, but let's listen to the rest. And keep in mind, like I said, worshiping evolution is actually more, it's if not equal to the heliocentric effect on humanity. Because it's the authority. When we're talking about flat Earth, we're talking about the lie itself. So the lie is based upon the authority to make you believe in the lie. Now, the authority to make you believe in the lie comes from you already believing that their authority comes from being an evolved consciousness, an evolved intelligence. And that evolution comes from the Darwinian belief system, the Big Bang, the gravity theory, heliocentrism, and every other monkey evolution theory that comes along that puts Western so-called civilization, technology, and all these smart systems at the peak of human evolution. That's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to believe. Simultaneously, you're demonizing the indigenous people that were genocided. You're thinking of them. You're making sure that they are seen as primitive and savage people because you are the evolved consciousness. And saying stories like this, telling stories like this, is only gonna amplify that belief system in your reality.
Not internet porn?
No, that's just porn in another medium.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, internet porn is just a matter of degree, not a matter of
yes,
does it exist or does it not.
Right.
Okay. I think it was the most significant event to happen in our species.
Kind of amazing when you stop and think about the fact that at that point in time, other than the Native Americans who lived here who were living a nomadic tribal existence, very few people that had the wheel, that had firearms, that had all these things that had already been achieved in the rest of the world had made their way to this place.
So now watch. Okay. Here's how it worked.
Right.
So you're going to hear. So I presume that you have some skepticism of this claim.
These are the protectors of the European Empire. The European Empire, everything that's going on. Of course, it's not limited to just the European Empire. It's deeper than that. You got all the different factions that are there. You got the Jesuits. You have all these different. What I'm talking about is the system of power, the system of authority that exists. Yes, it's compartmentalized, but when you take into account something like white supremacy, that's part of the psychological enslavement of people that exists not only in the Americas but across the earth, you have to take into account all of the systems of control, from the psychological to the spiritual and the physical warfare. All of them matter. All of them are relative. So if that's the case, you have to listen to when people like Neil deGrasse Tyson are speaking in favor of something like that and realize how it fits in there. People who listen to my channel only for flat earth or other things like that, some of them get a little butthurt when I talk about how racism and all the other psychological warfare tactics fit into this storyline. But when somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson starts speaking like that, then it just confirms it. Then how many confirmations do you need to know? This is how they're selling it to you. And this is why I get, I start asking questions. I'm like, when are we going to talk about this? The people who speak about flat earth. When is this going to be a subject? When is the Christopher Columbus colonization of all the indigenous lands going to be part of the discussion of how we got lied to? You already connected to evolution. You already connected to heliocentrism. Where are those videos? Where are the videos that are really connecting directly, like the specially made videos that directly connect white supremacy to psychological warfare and heliocentrism in reference to the power, the authority, the ability to control people with false information? Where are those videos? Because it directly relates to the lie. I hope some of them come out now that, I'm breaking it down and explaining to you that Neil deGrasse Tyson is saying it right now. Who the fuck praises Christopher Columbus? Especially in 2018. Where the fuck are you coming from?
As most people would, especially the Columbus haters who are out there. All right.
I don't really have any skepticism.
Columbus haters?
Let me describe to you why I think this is true.
The fuck?
And then you can tell me whether you agree or not. All right. We are hunter-gatherers. We haven't settled down yet, early humans. And we're basically wandering. We're following the herds. All right. And then the Ice Age hits. Well, what is an ice age? An ice age means it is so cold that when the moisture evaporates from the oceans, goes to the clouds go over the land, it doesn't rain, it snows. And the snow falls, and then it stays. So the water that had lifted up from the ocean does not return to the ocean. It accumulates on the land. And this accumulation, when it's significant and sustained, we call glaciers. Glaciers is not itself a snowfall. It is compressed snow that's basically changed state into this ice river that flows very slowly back to the ocean. But the oceans are getting drained faster than they're getting replenished. So during the Ice Age, the ocean levels dropped, exposing the Bering Strait land bridge between Asia and what is now Alaska, basically North America. Our ancestors who come out of Africa go into Europe. Some stayed, others kept wandering. Some stayed low above the Mediterranean.
You see how quickly he threw that out of Africa theory out there as truth, dogmatic truth. That's how they do with gravity and relativity and the Big Bang and all that other stuff. They tell all these stories with their storytelling voices, all these stories, and then slip something like that in there, and then now you don't have anything. You have no ability to question anything anymore. Like, that's just a belief that's now a fact.
Went high. They populate Asia. They keep walking because there's a land bridge there. They don't even know it's a bridge. It's just more land.
He's basically, because I'm going to go into the next video, he's just going to go on, and then he actually gets uncomfortable because he's talking too much, and Joe Rogan's not saying anything. He's going to go on and on and on and on about how people came from Africa over, through Asia and down in from Canada, Alaska, Canada, all the way down, and now they're the Native Americans, and that Christopher Columbus was here and put Spanish, missions all over the place. Just don't talk about the genocide. Don't address the sickness and disease that was brought over. In fact, he actually talks shit about the Native Americans and says that no, it wasn't the Europeans who brought diseases over here and killed everybody over here. He says that what actually happened, you can listen to the video for yourself. I don't know if it's this one or the other one. He's pro Christopher Columbus in this video, obviously. He's also anti-Native American if you really think about it or anything. And that's what I'm saying is inherent within the system itself. It has to be real sly, like anti-pre-Columbian anything. Because everything that this empire is based upon is post-Columbian. So he says, pro Christopher Columbus, and then he gets into saying, the Europeans actually brought syphilis back to. Syphilis didn't appear in Europe until 1492. That's because poor Christopher Columbus, went over to the Native Americans and caught syphilis from the dirty, primitive, and savage Native Americans and brought it over to Europe, and that's when it appeared out there. Oh, those dirty, nasty Native Americans. You don't talk about anything else. None of the Tuskegee experience, the Guatemala syphilis test, and all that other shit. None of those talks and none of that shit. Christopher Columbus is great, and dirty-ass Native Americans brought syphilis back to Europe. So
you want to not hate him no matter what he says. You want to evaluate statement by statement what he says, right? That's what you need to do. He says, I want a Space Force. Well, let's think about that, okay? In the Second World War, there was the Air Force, except they were not their own branch. They were part of the Army. It was called the Army Air Force. And then we realized that command and control in the air needs different kinds of soldiers, because they have to be pilots. It's a different kind of decision-making, different kinds of tactical actions you would have in the theater of operations. And so it was sensible to spawn off a new branch of the military called the Air Force. No one today would question whether that was a good idea. Today, you should know that operations in space, in the vacuum of the universe, is a different regime that you're operating in from moving through the air. Your hardware looks different. Your strategies are different. Your command and control is different. So it's not just because it came out of Trump's mouth doesn't make it a crazy idea that you might want a Space Force. In fact, I had proposed a Space Force in 2001 when I was on a commission appointed by George W. Bush to explore the future of the United States aerospace industry, a commission of 12. So I put it on the table. We have Air Force generals there, former members of Congress, people from Lockheed Martin, and people said, well, the Air Force is currently overseeing space, United States Space Command. So everybody was happy with it, and so I said, okay, let's not worry about it. If everybody's, but as long as this needs of our presence in space grows, but more importantly, the size of our assets, as long as that continues to grow, what else would a military do beyond protecting your borders? They would protect your assets. And our space assets by day by day, are growing by leaps and bounds. So
space assets. Our space assets are growing day by day. So I don't even know if I want to play the rest of this video, but he's going to get into because I'm like physically, my body is physically starting to feel shitty because of this shit. I might speed up the video even more just to get through it and see how it sounds, but he's basically going to go into how satellites are really connected to, your everything that you use and work in every single day in society. And the Russians sent a satellite into space that was like those Russian dolls that like the dolls that are inside the dolls. Anyway, that's what they sent a satellite up there, and it opened up and made another satellite baby, and then made another satellite baby, and maybe those Russian satellites gonna attack us and turn our microwaves on and like microwave our babies when they're sleeping, and maybe they'll get a hold of the smart grid, and that's basically how they're gonna sell the Space Force. It's like, well, Russia just put a satellite up there that could maybe be dangerous, and if we don't do something about it, like create a Space Force, then that'll be un-American. Like we have to be the first Space Force, first everything.
It's not assets, meaning like satellites, space stations,
and the value of those. It's not just the cost of the satellite; it's the value that's the satellite to you.
Right.
Assets.
The military is now creating a whole other GPS system that will be exclusive to them. And then,
like I said, make it personal. GPS. How does it affect you? The Russians are putting satellites in space. The thing that you should be afraid of is how are satellites being attacked by Russia? How does that affect you, the regular Joe American?
We're going to cede the current GPS to... And what have we done with GPS?
GPS!
This hard-earned engineering and physics and orbital...
Now I remember. Listen to how he sells it to you. Now I remember what he said. They're going to see how he's going to link satellites with sex. See how... Because I told you how they sell... fucking cheeseburgers with sex. They sell everything with sex. They're gonna sell you the Space Force with sex, and they're like why you should do things and believe things. They're gonna sell it to you with sex. It's coming up right now. This shit is fun. When I first heard it, I was like, really? Like, did he really go there? Yes, he did, because he can't go anywhere else. This is how. Just listen.
Mechanics. What have we done with the GPS? We now use it to find out who you want to mate with.
Oh, someone's in your area.
Yeah, that's what this is. Tinder. This is Grindr. This
GPS.
is show me mateable people within 20 square blocks of where I am. That's a GPS.
I think they mate on Grindr.
The definition mate implies you're making a mate.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are you going to have sex with? Fine.
Yeah.
So that has a certain economic value to society. So does Uber. So does UPS tracking their trucks.
Yeah.
So it's not the cost of the satellite. It's the value of the satellite to our economy. You want that protected.
You want that protected. And you need to get yourself a Space Force up there to protect those satellites, because them satellites going to get hit by them Russians. They're going to knock out your ability to have sex with somebody who's less than 3 miles away from you.
Makes sense. Is there a Space Force currently?
Makes sense.
Real? Have they recruited
There's
people?
United States Space
Cuck.
Is there anybody who's a general?
If we make
Space
a
Cuck,
Space
Joe Rogan.
Air Force
That makes sense.
So if you're going to make a Space Force, you would offload the space activities of the Air Force
Space Command
to this U.S. Space
Command
to the Space Force, and then add or subtract from that in whatever way is sensible given the needs. If we have a Space Force, you know what I want to see?
What?
I want them to protect us from asteroids. How about that for a defense program?
How about that?
You want the government involved in that?
I told you before, them damn asteroids, they would sell that shit all the time. They get Bruce Willis out there for Armageddon Part 2 and go stop gotta drill another hole in an asteroid and blow it up. Oh, he died in the other one. Armageddon, spoiler alert.
Shouldn't it be something a little bit more thorough?
Bruce Willis fucking dies.
Yeah, you just made a blanket anti-government decision because you were just an anti-government guy.
That's what people say.
Okay, so private enterprise.
We're so outside of the government. It's such a joke.
Is not good at doing expensive things that have never been done before.
Right. You need government money.
Government does it first. Okay?
Right.
Then you learn where the hostiles are, where the friendlies are, what patent did you need to make this happen. Then the venture capitalist meeting about whether I'm going to make a buck on it has some teeth in it. They say, how much will this cost? Well, we know because the government did it, and we think we can do it for half that price. Is it dangerous? Yes, the government did this, and they lost 2 people, but we will put protections in so we won't have that risk. What is the return on the investment? The government got no return because that wasn't the objective, but here's how we can bring it. So I'll do it second, I won't do it first. This is how you get the Dutch East India Trading Company. They were not the first Europeans to the New World. Because where's the edge of the earth? Will you find India? What? You don't know any of this. I'm screaming at you. Sorry. You don't know any of this. Columbus does it.
See, everything is based on people who are saying that I'm talking about racism or whatever. Like, I don't need to explain it, but this guy, he said it right there. He's focused. Everything he's talking about, everything that he worships and cherishes, is based upon Europeans moving somewhere from one place to another and colonizing the lands. Anything that predates that predates his authority. His authority comes from the university system. The university system comes from the authority that the Europeans inflicted on the rest of the world by colonizing, slaughtering, genociding, and destroying and stealing all of the land. His authority comes from that system. His existence is based upon protecting that empire, because protecting that empire is protecting his power, his authority. And if he protects his authority, they work together. Joe's authority comes from cherishing, looking up to, being so proud of the forefathers and the Constitution and everything American, and they are protecting the same consciousness. They're protecting the same belief systems, just in their own style. Joe Rogan comes from the like, oh, I'm just a guy, just a regular guy. And Neil deGrasse Tyson comes from, I'm just a regular guy too, but I'm a regular smart guy. And then now they team up and tell you how to think about your reality.
First. And he can tell you where there's food and where there isn't, and where they want to kill you and where they don't. Then you hand that information to the mercantilists. And they make a buck after the fact.
So they come in.
Yeah. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how modern airplanes came about. People are making planes in their garage. The government said this could be a cool thing. Let's pay them.
See, he has no... They will never address the lack of moral anything in Colombianism. They won't address any of that. They only have to be proud of it. If they speak about anything other than that, they'll be addressing their own. They'll be making their own authority and power. The security of it will be challenged. So they have to consistently talk good in reference to something like Christopher Columbus and the genocide, the conquering, and then they have to talk down against. I mean, it's a constant barrage of "fuck you, we're great,"
and have them compete to carry airmail, new kind of mail delivered by air. Oh, that's cool. So now I make an airplane because I want the contract. You say no, you want the contract. You make an airplane that has more cargo.
So he's basically saying right here that airplanes. You fly, right? You've been on a plane before? Yeah. Well, the government. It's a whole pro-government speech. That's what this is right now. It's pro-government. He wants to, get more people being pro-government. He's saying, well, if you've flown before, guess what? Your first helicopters and your airplanes, they were started by the government. Woo! That's all American, baby. They got it. We did it. He's telling you the American way.
A better engine. You're cleverer. Now you just took the contract from me. Now I make a bigger airplane. And I said, oh, I see what he did there, but now I can improve on that. Now, government basically bankrolled it, as did prize money for accomplishing certain.
I just wanted to speed up.
Okay. Yeah, did it for the money. Yeah, as most of them did. Fly the longest, the highest, the fastest, get over the early humps. You got to get through the treaty in the 1960s, to which we are signatory. Okay, and I talk about it in Accessory to War.
I think he's talking about.
It's like, are they going to make space weapons and space ships?
There's a treaty in the 1960s, to which we are signatory. Okay, and I talk about it in Accessory to War. It's again, I feel so bad for doing this.
Plug it, baby.
No, I feel so.
Let me hold it then.
No, yeah, you can hold it. Yeah.
Space Cuck, here he comes to the rescue.
But it's
hey, look, I'm a Space Cuck.
Unspoken alliance between astrophysics and the military.
Look at this.
You look beautiful with that book.
Thank you.
Primarily because there's a bow
you
and
look
arrow.
beautiful with that dick in your mouth, Joe.
That became a weapon and a missile at a time. You're a bow and arrow guy.
Oh.
Last I checked.
Yeah.
You got a freaking bow and arrow in the back room here.
Yes.
What are you afraid?
I practice.
When the zombies come and they run out of bullets? Yeah.
Zombie son, I'm pulling that sword out like the chick from Walking Dead. Seems to be the best weapon. Everybody runs out of bullets and the zombies are slow.
And her weapon is, in fact, a samurai sword. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, what was I saying before I interrupted myself?
Space Force.
Who's paying attention out there?
Weapons.
Asteroids.
Weaponizing space. So there's an outer space treaty for the peaceful uses of outer space. And it was in 1967. There's some modifications since then, but that's the basic one. And we are signature to it, and so are the other major countries of the world.
Yeah, well, didn't we just break out of the Paris Accord? Just break out of that goddamn space pussy shit, too.
It's a beautiful document. It's
See, like I said earlier, he's talking about a treaty. He was also talking about Christopher Columbus in this. Did you hear anything about Native American treaties? No, you only hear about this one little ass European treaty about space, or not European treaty, but supposedly a space treaty with an international space treaty where we're all supposed to be nice to each other. And then he's gonna get all like philosophical and like on his high horse about, you know what? I don't think we should even be talking about what like war in space or a treaty in space if we can't even keep a peace treaty here. Let's do it here first.
I have to be very forward-looking. If there's an astronaut from another country who is at risk, then you will go to help them without question. It's very kumbaya.
Okay.
So one of my sort of, now that I'm old and tired and I'm a realist, it's why should we promise to not kill each other in space when we are not successful at doing that here on Earth?
And we don't even promise to not
We
kill
don't
each other
even
here.
promise to do.
That's very deep. Oh, it's so deep, Neil. Can't believe how the fuck can you say that either before or right after he just said praises to Christopher Columbus
Here on Earth.
Yeah.
Who are we to say, oh, well, we'll kill each other, but in space we'll all hold hands?
maybe
I don't have that much confidence in human conduct. I become cynical over my years, and I'm angry. Demonstrate to me that on Earth you know how to not kill one another. Then I'll believe your space treaty. That's all I'm saying here. Now, given that there is a treaty, it says you can't put heavy weapons in space. As I detail in one of the... Oh, by the way, I have a co-author on this. I started doing this 12 years...
You're just going to start going in.
How does that work?
Just dictated entire chapters to her in the right this. But I know broadly how it happened and what's...
You're just
as it's
talking
coming
about the
together.
book
Let's
the
drop
whole
the middle
time.
one and take the other two. And I say, great. So I write that up. And actually, it's a co-written project. It's not go... here's a problem that we detail here. People say, I don't want weapons in space. Okay, there's nothing more useless than a space weapon relative to Earth's surface. Okay? If you're in space, you're in orbit. But think it through. I use your skull here. That's kind of cool. Okay, if this is Earth.
Okay.
Everything more spherical here? I guess not. I'm using your skull.
I think so.
Okay. All right. So this is Earth.
Okay.
And I've got a satellite in orbit around the Earth.
Right.
Okay. And I say, okay, I want to weaponize the satellite, put a bomb in it, and I want to drop over some city. Some bad person wants to make that decision.
Right.
Well, what's the city you want to hit? Well, it's up here somewhere.
So you got to drop it halfway there.
So you got to, well, no, it's not just that. These are not very high above the planet. And so you have to like change the orbit to align it so that it goes over your target. Satellites don't go over every spot on Earth.
Right.
They only go over the orbit that had been preset for it. Okay. We can already destroy a city with an intercontinental ballistic missile. And we can aim that. We can aim a missile to any place on Earth, and it'll get there in less than 45 minutes. And destroy the whole city with nuclear weapons. We can already do that. There is no advantage to putting nukes in space if that's your objective. Not only that, suppose there's a rogue satellite and it's messing with you. It's beaming energy particles at you, and you want to take it out. How are you going to take it out? You're going to destroy it? Oh, now you...
Everything is sold to you with fear. You're afraid of asteroids. You're afraid of your satellites being knocked out. You're afraid of losing the internet, losing Tinder, losing Facebook, losing GPS, everything. This is how he's scaring the shit out of you. I mean, it's obvious, but I'm going to be saying a lot of obvious things in these videos anyway, so I don't know. It's just exhausting to have to do this shit.
Break it into 1,000,000 pieces, 1,000 pieces. Now each piece is moving 18,000 miles an hour, and put your own satellites at risk.
It's also good to see like how these people are evolving their ability to lock people in to a particular frame of mind, like a thought process or a belief system, and also to observe how weak it is and how like it's not changing really. It's the same thing, but over time, like you're only able to see it when it's called out over and over and over and over again. Like this is why Joe Rogan interviews him in chunks, like or in like twice a year or 3 times a year or something like that, or he appears like on Stephen Colbert's show or on Bill Maher's show every now and again, because everybody's tuning in and like their own focus, and you only need so much. He only needs to trigger your trust and belief in the system. You do the rest.
That's the modern equivalent to in the First World War when they say, "Oh, we have a good idea because we can't shoot them in the trenches. Let's gas them out." So they have the mustard gas. Oops, the wind changed directions, and all of a sudden you become a victim of your own weapon, such as would happen in space if you go in and start exploding satellites out of orbit. So war in space is a different thing. It's not what you think it would be.
So what would they do?
So the peaceful use of outer space treaty allows you to have defensive things in space, not offensive, for defensive purposes. It allows that. So
treaty aside, though,
yeah.
what could you do? Could you have space
a rogue
war?
state could take out our GPS satellites,
okay, but
and render the military blind, and then you won't be able to pick up your Uber. And you won't have anyone have sex with tonight.
A rogue state could take out our satellites, so we need to send billions and billions of dollars into Space Force. That's specifically why Neil deGrasse Tyson was hired. He was hired to do what he just said right then and right there, to scare the shit out of people so you can supposedly vote on getting more money to go into their lying to your face ass schemes.
The range of stuff that GPS applies to.
Right.
And so it'll affect our economy and it'll affect our security. And then our Navy can't talk to the Air Force can't talk to it. And that would be bad.
And that would be bad.
Wars are no longer fought just by how many soldiers.
You see how kindergarten he locks everything down? He's like, in the Navy, you see the Navy, they won't be able to speak to the Air Force. Oh, guys, like he's reading a book to a classroom full of kids. You know, and the Navy and the Army, they wouldn't be able to talk to the Marines. Oh, look at the sad face on the Marines. And what happens is America loses the war in the end. And you don't want that, do you? You don't want the bad guys to win. You want the good guys, Americas, to win. So that's why he said that would be a bad thing. This guy's supposed to be the smartest fucking dude ever. He says like, and that would be a bad thing. He's talking to your child mind.
At the border. It's what have you done strategically to render your opponent to weaken your opponent or render them incapable of fighting you. This is why the attacks on September 11th worked. Because we had a policy that if someone wants to hijack a plane, you follow their instructions. You do not deny them their requests. Because the assumption was that if you deny their requests, they will start harming people. And if you follow their requests, it will delay when they harm them, if they harm them at all, and maybe everyone will end up safe. It was not in the game plan that they would crash the plane on purpose. Okay? So, September 12th, you will never again be able to do that to an American plane. Forget the extra X-rays that we're doing. A pilot will never relinquish the cockpit ever again. No matter who they're torturing in the back of the plane. No matter what they're doing, even if they're shooting people one by one. Because the plane going down takes everybody out. So that was a pretty easy door to close, literally and figuratively. But no one saw it coming.
You know what drives me crazy? When they put that drink cart in the hallway to protect the pilot when they open the door.
I asked them about that. So it's just to delay you a fraction of a second to give them a chance to go in and lock the door. Right. It's you have to get through them and the flight attendant. That takes an extra second. You can't just run in. Plus, they don't even allow you to stand in the aisle while it's happening. They'll tell you to sit down. Correct. Yeah. So you have to get out of your thing, charge the cart, and get through the cart and the flight attendant, who will be fighting for their life at this point. Okay? And because the plane is everything.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that opening, though. You can get through there. Those ladies aren't going to stop me. Nobody really is physically
Joe Rogan has already thought this through.
Well, it's an unfortunate thing that my mind does.
The point is, you can...
I would never do it, of course.
You know what? I thought about, not that, but I thought to myself, the plane that went, because I was like eyewitness September 11th, 6 blocks away from, 6 walking blocks, 4 blocks.
Did you actually witness the plane?
You see a trend of ridiculous shit? 9/11, satellites, Russia, asteroids, every single thing, every single story that you know is full of shit. they're repeating over and over and over again. They either joke about it, or they tell a scary story about it, or they relate it to sex, or they relate it to education, or they relate it to politics. Whatever it is, all of them do the same thing and affect you the same way.
No, because my view was blocked from the south. So, but I have camcorder footage of the explosion, biggest explosion I've ever seen. And by the way, one thing I noticed is that there was no shockwave. I might have been the closest scientist to the event. So all I could do was apply every bit of physics that I know. There was no shockwave. I said, well, how can we have an explosion and no shockwave? And I later learned, if you can make a deflagration wave, if you atomize fuel and then you spark it, then the flame moves across the fuel. It's not a shockwave. It's just a deflagration wave. And therefore, there's no shock.
So he just knocked out at least two birds with one stone. Now he went in talking about the regular storyline for 9/11. So, I mean, I don't have to get too much into that. When people start, defending stuff like that, and he said, oh, there was no shockwave because jet fuel burns at a certain whatever, and
so windows are not blown out a quarter mile away as they were in Oklahoma City with the
giant bomb, Timothy
McVeigh. Why am I bringing this up?
Because you're paid to.
September 9th. The plane. Yeah. So here's something I calculated. I said
9/11.
I was in a 767.
Listen, guys, we got to talk about asteroids. We got to talk about 9/11. We got to talk about Space Force. You got to mention Tinder. Make people want satellites because it's gonna fuck with their sex life. Make sure you emphasize that, and then and then say something positive about Christopher Columbus. This will be a good podcast.
We're about to crash into a building. If I was in the last row of the plane, how much time would elapse before the front row crumbled and it met me in the back row? Given the speed of the plane going into the building.
500 miles an hour?
Yeah. Well, it's slower than that by then. I would say closer to 400. I mean, it's a known speed. I don't know, but I don't think it was this. Because you can't turn at that high speed. And
more science!
I have to say it's about a second.
More science!
It's a fraction. So the question is, how long does it take a plane to go its own length when it's going at 400 miles an hour? Yeah, that's a second. Yeah, it's a fraction. So that's it. You can't even process that. So I figured the deaths were pretty quick.
Wow. Instantaneous.
Yes, basically instantaneous. You were pulverized.
Fear.
Pile of goo.
Are they planning on spaceships that can shoot down other spaceships?
So any space wars would not be war between space and Earth. It would be between stuff and space.
Stuff in space.
Like
space to space.
Space
to space.
Space stuff.
Here's another question.
Let's see. Let's go through this I'm not an atheist thing real quick, because I also tie in, like I said, the whole university system representing the anti-meaning and purpose within humanity. So there's no connection to spirit, there's no spirituality, your culture, their practices didn't matter. They weren't connected to anything. The only thing that matters is science. Neil deGrasse Tyson must be feeling the heat about being like the leading atheist out there. He's like the preacher for the university system, which is represented like it represents atheism. So in this video, if I remember correctly, he skirts around it. He just says like, I don't believe in like, religious God, and talks about, religious gods and all that stuff. Let's just listen to what the hell he's saying.
I don't call myself an atheist. It's why. You can look up the dictionary definition of atheist, and it kind of applies to me, but what is the definition of atheist in practice? It is what leading atheists do, and it's their conduct, and it's their behavior, it's what they say, and it's their attitude. Mm-hmm. That is what an atheist is today, because they're the most visible exemplars of that word. And most of their conduct, I either don't agree with or simply don't engage in.
What don't you agree with?
I don't debate religious people and tell them they're idiots.
I don't. That doesn't work.
Whether or not it works, it's not in me to do that. I don't purge myself of words that have religious foundations in them. I once in my Facebook, I had a friend going up in orbit to repair the Hubble telescope, one of the astronauts, and I said, Godspeed. Mm-hmm. And then I gave the astronaut's name. People wrote in the thread and said, I thought you were an atheist. How can you say Godspeed? An atheist got angry with me? And I said, okay, first of all, this
is how, these are very slick. I'll just let it play. People will know what I'm talking about. He's saying that he's not, but he's saying he is. You heard him say it kind of relates to me. So,
phrase is deeply historical in the space program. When John Glenn was launched,
he's playing the victim and the good guy. Like, even though he represents the system that is like fueling the atheist movement.
It was Godspeed, John Glenn. And every mission where we send human beings into space, somewhere there's that reference in the NASA family.
What does that word mean?
I'll tell you what it means.
Please do.
Okay? So, by the way, I'll get to that in just 1 minute.
Take your time.
The atheists who are arguing that I was using Godspeed as a phrase, they all have used the phrase goodbye, haven't they? See you later, goodbye.
Right.
Where does that word come from? It's from God be with you. It's a contraction of those three words.
Oh.
And why would you say this? You would say this to someone leaving the city wall, where it's dangerous. Okay? Back when you had city-states.
Look out for you.
So now, what is the source of danger if you're going to space? It's not alien space muggers.
Danger!
It is the fact that you have space marauders. It's the fact that you have high speed. And high speed is the source of essentially any death of anything that's in motion, if you were part of that disaster. So Godspeed is like a space equivalent to God be with you.
Is that really the origin of it?
I'm just saying.
But did they say that before there was space travel? Did they say Godspeed?
I don't know the actual origin of space travel, of the term. I don't know how far back it goes, but I do know it became common after John Glenn, because they're not going to say it to Yuri Gagarin because they're all atheists in the Soviet Union.
Right.
But here in America, Godspeed, John Glenn. And I respect that tradition. And so I said that.
I respect that tradition.
They're jumping on me for having said that. Clearly I'm not an atheist. And ask me my favorite Broadway musical of all time.
What's your favorite?
Jesus Christ Superstar. All right. So, and I still use BC and AD in my writings. Okay? I still do.
You don't use BCE?
I don't use
Totally not an atheist, guys. Totally. Look. My favorite musical is Jesus Christ Superstar. Totally not an atheist, man.
See? All right. Oh, see, even you copping it too right there, right?
Interesting.
Copping
I
it
saw your face. You got the camera. Do you see it?
Interesting. I just said interesting. It's interesting.
No, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
First of all,
Doesn't make any sense.
BCE
This is
was-
not current era, 2,000 years ago.
I'm going to tell you. So BCE, as you know, stands for Before Common Era,
Right.
and CE stands for Common Era. So this is de-religiousifying AD and BC.
Right.
Okay. Yet, of course, they reference the same calendar.
Right.
Okay. Well, who invented the calendar we all currently use in modern society? It's called the Gregorian calendar. It was invented by the Catholic Church, by Jesuit priests in the 1580s, assigned by Pope Gregory to fix the problems in the calendar because I'm starting screaming at you. You got me started.
Scream. Get crazy.
I got to calm down.
I'll bring you coffee.
And CIS get into that. That's what I'm glad I caught that, because in this video, because you can see it. It's easy to see.
The Julian calendar, put forth in ancient Rome, had one modification to previous
There's a
calendar.
look in these people. Look at his eyes.
And okay, leap day is how often? Every 4 years. This was good. Because what are we trying to track? The Earth goes around the sun. And so we say, all right, how long does that take? Well, it takes a year. But it turns out we're not actually tracking how long it takes Earth to go around the sun. We're tracking how long it takes Earth to repeat its seasons. And the year that corresponds to our seasons is slightly different from the year that corresponds to how long it takes to go around the sun. Slightly different. And that difference was not recognized in the early calendars. And that difference accumulated. So that by the year 1584, the vernal equinox, the first day of spring, did not occur on March 21st. It occurred on March 10th. It shifted from the calendar date. That's what happens if you don't match the cycles of things. And the Pope said, we're not having any of this, especially since Easter might land on Passover, and we're trying to distinguish ourselves mightily from the Jews. So let's fix this. The Jesuit priests got to study this. They looked at the cycles of the heavens, the sun, the moon, the stars, and they came up with a new calendar, the Gregorian calendar, a modification to the Julian calendar. You know what they had to do? To invoke it, they had to take 10 days out of the calendar. 10 days out of the calendar. So now how much rent do you pay? They had to invent amortized rent. And the whole world uses this calendar. It is the most accurate calendar ever devised. It overcorrected.
Overcorrect.
Yes.
So you need a leap year.
So the leap day is every 4 years. That
Accurate.
since the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. 10 extra days. First, jumpstart. Get rid of the 10 days. Now everything's lined.
Accurate.
You would otherwise put in.
He's talking about
Okay.
talking about the accuracy of the calendar, and then they have to backpedal from all this leap year shit and all these corrections.
That's every 100 years.
Oh.
So every 100 years, that would be a leap day. You have to wait before you have to put a leap day back in, which normally would not have a leap day. Astronomers, on February 29th in the year 2000, said it's just that corrects it back. And so now you have to stay the calendar for tens of thousands of years. Sorry to drop an F-bomb there. So I'm not just because some atheists are telling me to rid God out of everything in the universe.
Did he say F-bomb?
The calendar that we all use, and it's a fucking awesome count. Sorry to drop an F-bomb there. So I'm not just because some atheists are telling me to rid God out of everything in the universe. I'm not doing that. I'm going to say they came up with this calendar. The reasons were because they didn't want to confuse it with Passover. The motivation is whatever it is, but the science is good. And so there it is.
There it is. I'm done. I'm going to go vomit now. So thank you for the support. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.